Hello, I'm not too familiar with editing, so I'm just going to do a slideshow about Jiseul and its correlation with the Jeju Uprising. So, Jeju is an island province at the bottom of South Korea over here. It was formed due to very old volcanic activity. So here you can see a volcanic crater and like a lake within inside the caves and caverns made by this volcano. It has a long history of colonization. It was originally just like a separate kingdom called Tanman. There's a bunch of other iterations of the name, but eventually it got colonized by the Mongol Empire. You can see it in the corner here. Eventually, when the Mongol Empire would fall, it would get reclaimed by South Korea during the Goryeo dynasty. It would remain as a part of South Korea, or I mean, not South Korea, but Korea, up until the Joseon dynasty, where eventually the Japanese Empire would colonize all of Korea, including, you can see here, Jeju Island. So it has like a long history of being colonized. So during the Korean War, when there was going to be a division between the North and South, the Jeju citizens didn't really take kindly to that, and especially with the U.S. involvement on the island, there were multiple rallies and protests against the division of South Korea, involvement of the U.S. in the government of South Korea, and the quick and fast elections for the South Korean government. So eventually what would occur on April 3rd, 1948 is the 4-3 incident, which were a few armed attacks that occurred at multiple police stations in Jeju. I think about 12 of 24 of the police stations in Jeju were attacked, which killed multiple police and members of the Northwest Youth League who were stationed by the South Korean government to suppress Jeju protests by force. This would mark the beginning of the Jeju Uprising, which was a series of catastrophic events on Jeju Island, where the South Korean and U.S. governments responded violently to the 4-3 incident with a military campaign to, quote-unquote, reduce the communist influence on Jeju. This would lead to a lot of war crimes, including rape, arson, murder of citizens by the South Korean army. About 30,000 people would die during the Jeju Uprising, with this memorial being dedicated to them now in modern Korea, or like in Jeju. You can see here also, I haven't covered the film yet, but this cave correlates a lot to the film, and is fact like maybe what the film was based off of. But I took this quote from an article on the 4-3 incident in Jeju Uprising by Josh Kwan in fall 2020. Only by understanding the Jeju 4-3 uprising through the anti-colonial lens of the islanders can one better understand the disaster. The villagers were largely afraid of the wide-scale suppression by the U.S. military, mainland police, and right-wing groups that had indiscriminately tortured and slaughtered them. This speaks a lot to the film and what its focus is on. But yeah, I agree with Josh Kwan. Like, when you think about it from a perspective of just like international politics, yeah, of course, if there was hostility of communist influence in the area, of course they would be suppressed. I think to better understand the fear of the villagers, we have to put ourselves in their shoes and why they were taking these actions. So this is the director of Jiseul, Muel. He's from Jeju, and he actually had an aunt who died during the Jeju Uprising. So he felt it was very important to properly educate people about the Jeju Uprising and 4-3 incident. He felt that a lot of the cultural importance of Korea was mainly based off Seoul-based culture, and he felt that the Jeju culture was kind of waning. In fact, nobody really knew, or not many people knew about the Jeju Uprising outside of Jeju due to how heavily suppressed the Jeju Uprising was by the South Korean government due to like being shamed after the incidents that occurred. In 2012, he would release Jiseul, which is potato in the Jeju dialect. Muel had named it potato because the crop has a history of representing survival and hope against many famines. It is set during the Jeju Uprising, following two primary groups, and I'll get the promotional material out. It follows the military, which are photographed here. They have encamped in the old village of the Jeju villagers, and the Jeju villagers themselves are the primary focus. They hide in a cave for most of the film, and they're trying to hide away from the South Korean government and army. The whole plot of the film is that the military are trying to hunt down these villagers to suppress the communist influence, but in actuality, they by some degree know that they're casualties and just citizens or bystanders of the international politics at play. There's a distinct amount of realism in the film. You can see the film is completely shot in black and white. There's very little score, and it adds a lot of grounding and realism to the film that helps it deliver its anti-colonial and anti-war messages better. The film was made on a $190,000 budget. There is a lot of constraints to the film due to Muel's dedication to, even though it was a fictitious story, sticking to history and sticking to accuracy. And I think this helps the film deliver a lot of its messages well and in a serious manner, which I feel like a few other films that I've watched in this class have failed to do so. So Muel said in an interview, "My only wish is for all people around the world to watch my movie." Jiseul would initially premiere in the Busan International Film Fest, but it would win 4 rewards, and it was successful and well liked enough to go to Sundance. And there it would be introduced to many modern Korean audiences who are unfamiliar with the Jeju Uprising, as well as international audiences. So he did get his wish. A lot of people around the world watched his film, which is great. For an independent film, it was very successful in Korea as well, selling over 100,000 tickets on release into theaters. It would meet critical acclaim internationally, though it was hard to digest for foreign audiences who were not really informed about the incident. I don't think I put the quote in here. I did not. But Muel said he didn't want to really lecture about the Jeju Uprising to people, but rather shed light on the Jeju Uprising and how that affected the villagers of Jeju. But yeah, it's a great film. I really recommend it. It has a good plot and a very serious plot. It may be uncomfortable to watch, but it does a good job at delivering its anti-war and anti-colonial themes. I left a bunch of links here, and I'll put them in the video description for further reading. But they go over Jeju Uprising, the Jeju Massacre, and Uprising. This is Jeju Island. Muel as a director. There's unfortunately not a lot about him, and I think he faded into obscurity in 2015 after releasing a film called Eyelids. And then here's a lot of films about Jiseul and analysis of them. But yeah, that's about it.